Hi, I'm Anna in the Growing Chefs Ontario Classroom Kitchen, and for this monthly kids cooking class, we're talking all about picnics. When I think about what I want to bring on a picnic, I want to carry the least amount of stuff possible. So for this sweet take on a strawberry salsa, we're going to make the chips too. Before you get started, make sure that you've read through the recipe completely, gathered all your ingredients and equipment, washed your hands, and set your oven to 350. In southwestern Ontario, June is when we start to see the first strawberries. And after a long winter, I can't wait for the early fruits of summer. For this recipe, I'm also using rhubarb because it's a natural combo and also in season right now. If you like lemon and the sourness of lemon, you'll probably love the sourness of rhubarb. I'm going to use the rhubarb to help balance out the sweetness of my strawberries. So to get started, I'm going to hull and slice my strawberries. So hulling a strawberry is when we take off the green leafy bit. It's okay, you can eat that bit, it's just not as nice to eat. Once I've taken off all the green leafy bits, that's when I'm going to start cutting it. I want to think about the size that I want to eat them with and what size is going to fit on top of my chip. So the chips are a little bit small, so I want to make sure that my strawberries are also pretty small. But I don't want to cut them so small that they become mushy. Because we're cutting these so small, it's really important that you're paying attention to where your hands are and using your bear claw. You can definitely do this part with a safe chopper as well. Next step, I'm going to zest and juice my lemon. So when I'm zesting, I want to make sure I'm just getting the very outer layer. I don't want any of the white pith underneath. And I'm going to zest it right into my strawberries. After that, I can cut open my lemon. And I'm going to put this in a separate bowl because I'm not sure how much lemon juice I'm going to need. After that, I'm going to move on to my rhubarb. So rhubarb is a really fun vegetable. And actually, the redder the stalks are, the sweeter they are. But they are all still a little bit sour and bitter. I'm going to cook these just slightly in a bit, and that will help take out some of that bitterness and soften a bit of the acidity. One of the last ingredients we're working with today is mint. Mint or basil are both herbs that work really well with strawberries, but because I'm also using lemon juice and a little bit of vanilla, I went with mint. You can cut mint with a knife or you can cut it with scissors. Just make sure that these scissors are meant for food preparation and not for crafts, because you don't want any glitter in this strawberry dip, even though it would look really pretty. So to cut your herbs with scissors, after you've picked them all off the stalk, you can stack them up to the best of your ability. And it's just like how we would cut them with a knife. So you're stacking them on top of each other, and then we're gonna roll them up a little bit. And we can cut these right on top of our strawberry bowls. I am all about making the least amount of dishes possible. That looks like a good amount of mint to start with, and we can always add more. So one more thing I'm going to do before we cook our rhubarb is I'm going to make our cinnamon sugar. And the cinnamon sugar is what we're going to coat our tortillas with to make our chips. So for this cinnamon sugar, this is about a 1/4 cup of sugar, and I'm putting in about a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I also put in some cardamom as well. This is a really fun place to experiment with different spices that pair well with strawberries. So try different things out and see what you like. To briefly cook my rhubarb, I'm just going to boil some water and put the rhubarb in and turn off the heat. Because I cut it so small, I just want to cook it very briefly. I don't want it to become soft. The amount of water you use here isn't important because we're gonna strain it off. I'm using a small wide bottom pan because the more surface area I have, the faster the water's gonna boil. You could also boil your water in a kettle too. The only thing about when you're using a pan like this is that because you have such a large surface area, your water can evaporate very quickly, so you'll wanna keep an eye on it. I've turned off my heat and I'm gonna let my rhubarb cool in the water before I add it to my salsa. So while we're waiting for the rhubarb to cool, we can finish off this strawberry salsa. So I'm gonna add a little bit of vanilla because vanilla pairs so well with strawberries, but I don't wanna add too much. And I'm going to add a bit of honey. I have 2 tablespoons here, but I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon because I don't know how sweet my strawberries are. So one of the great things about cooking is that you're working with ingredients that are different all the time. The bitterness is different, the sweetness is different, so it's always important that you're tasting and trying and adjusting for the ingredients that you have. I also want to remember that I'm going to be adding my rhubarb. That's going to be a little sour. I'm going to add a touch of lemon juice. And I'm actually going to taste my rhubarb and see where it is. I may not want it to cool all the way. And that's actually perfect. It's been off the heat for about a minute and already I can still feel it. It's a little bit crunchy, but it's not super soft. So it's gonna set up really well with the soft texture of my strawberries. I'm gonna strain this off. So I've added my rhubarb, I've stirred it around, I tasted it, it needed a bit more acidity. So I added the remaining lemon juice. And next we're gonna move on to our chips. So we've made our strawberry rhubarb dip and now it's time to make our chips. You can make these chips out of corn tortillas or flour tortillas, whichever you prefer. I have some corn tortillas here and what I'm going to do is prepare my baking sheet with parchment paper so it doesn't stick in the oven. And I'm going to brush the top and the bottom with oil and then sprinkle with my cinnamon sugar mixture. You don't want to get too much oil on the tortilla. A lot will go a long way. You can also use your clean hands to do this with if you don't have a brush or a spoon. If you've ever had nachos at a restaurant, likely it's a tortilla that's been cut up and deep fried. We're not going to deep fry these. That's why we need to make sure that we oil them and put them in a hot oven. But that's how you get a really crisp crunch. So now that I've oiled all of these, it's time to use my cinnamon sugar. And I'm going to use my hands and just do a liberal dusting on every tortilla. I want to make sure I get right to the edges so that every chip has an equal coating. So now that I've coated all of my tortillas with cinnamon sugar, you need to cut them. So we can cut them with scissors. Or we can cut them with a knife. Now that I have them laid out on my baking sheet, I want to make sure that I space them out evenly and each chip has enough space around it because we want the hot air to circulate around each chip and that is what's going to make it crunchy. Now that my chips are evenly placed out on my baking sheet, I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven for about 7 to 10 minutes. The time it takes is going to depend on how hot your oven is. So I'm going to check these after 5 minutes to start. When I take them out initially, they're not going to be at their full crunchiness. They have to cool down first. So remember that when you're testing the crunchiness and doneness of your chips. So my chips are out of the oven, and as you can see, they're getting some brownness on the edges, and they're very crispy. So some tortillas will kind of spread apart a little bit, and that's perfect because the thinner the tortilla is, the crunchier it will be. So that's perfect. I've put my dip in a bowl, and I'm going to just put around all of my chips here. If you were taking this on a picnic, sometimes I like to bring plates that I can put things in to make it look really nice, or sometimes I just bring Tupperware. So it's all up to you. And there it is, your strawberry rhubarb dip with your own cinnamon sugar chips. I hope you have a wonderful picnic this June and find as many opportunities as you can to get outside. Enjoy.